welcome to this episode of the Myo Minute. In this episode, I am going to be talking about the impact of tongue ties. Before we jump in, let me introduce myself. My name is Carmen. I'm a myofunctional therapist. I have a large global online practice, so I bring this important therapy to all corners of the world because I actually only work virtually. I get asked a lot if I work with people one-on-one in my town, and I don't. And part of that is because I travel so much to speak and teach on myofunctional therapy. So with that said, let's get ready to jump into the episode. Many of you guys have written to me, told me that you have a tongue tie and it's not causing you any problems, or you don't think it's causing you any problems. So you're curious if I think you should do something about it, or if there is going to be any impact to you from that tongue tie. So let me just say this. It's likely that you probably have symptoms. You just don't have any idea. After all, you have grown up this way, so you might think that everything's normal. I have said this time and time again that the eyes cannot see what the brain doesn't know. So for example, I have a lot of clients who have choking issues or facial tension issues, but because it's what they have always known, they really just think that it's normal, okay? So in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 areas that I see tongue ties impacting adults. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just really the biggest ones, okay? So the first thing, let's talk about an increase in symptoms. So what happens for an adult who has a tongue tie and they don't do anything about it? What happens is that we start to see those symptoms increase. The body stops compensating for many of you, and oftentimes this comes without any explanation. So for example, I hear this: Carmen, over the last 10 years, my tension headaches have continued to increase, but I have no idea. Or I started to choke more, but I have no idea. So that's the hard thing, is because over the time, as you start to see these symptoms increase, nobody is helping you figure out the root cause. And that's what I do. I'm the root cause gal, because I don't just simply say, oh, that's just how you are. I ask why. Like, why is that going on? So that's really the first thing that I see, is that symptoms start to increase. Now, let's talk about sleep apnea and sleep disordered breathing. Sleep apnea is not a destination, you guys. It's a scale. So when somebody has a tongue tie, there is not going to be correct tongue posture. Tip to tail, remember that's how we want the tongue up. That correct posture, when the tongue is up, it keeps the airway supported, okay? And when those muscles are working correctly, the airway is supported and there is less obstruction and collapsibility. So in a nutshell, when you have an untreated tongue tie and you lie down to sleep at night, your tongue is likely to be an obstacle in your throat. Tongue ties affect sleep quality regardless of whether you know it or not. They often lead to mouth breathing or snoring at night as well, which we all know is not healthy, okay? Next, number 3, I see choking in a lot of older adults. So again, I talked about this with the symptoms improving. Many people are having scopes and x-rays done while the doctor just sits and scratches their head saying, I don't know, nothing's changed. It's been several years now, but I once met a lady who was having her 3rd barium swallow test and fluoroscopy to see why she was choking. Just thinking about her story gives me the goosebumps, because I remember it like it was yesterday. When she told me that, I asked her if she would give me permission to assess her for a tongue tie, which I did. And this lady went on to find out she had the worst tongue tie, the worst category of tongue ties, and that she had less than 10% range of motion. So imagine her frustration. She was also on a very tight budget. So she had paid for these procedures because choking's very scary for anybody. And to find out that they were doing all this testing on her and she had a massive tongue tie, it's just so frustrating. Number 4, another way that a tongue tie is impacting an adult is postural issues. A tongue tie is a connective tissue issue. It's a postural issue, you guys. It's like your birthday suit is a size too small and it restricts your natural movement. It causes forward head posture, which we know is terrible. For every inch forward that your head is over your shoulder, forward of your shoulders, is an additional 12 pounds on your spine. So I've talked about this before too. So we see those people who are all hunched over. We think that it's osteopenia or osteoporosis. Not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's just kind of the consequence of forward head posture and the person over time and weakness and loss of muscle and muscle tone. They just kind of collapse. So forward head posture is terrible for your spine. Forward head posture or that rolled forward posture causes poor breathing, lack of diaphragmatic breathing, so you're not able to use the muscles as you should for breathing. This leads to a constant sympathetic response, fight or flight all the time. Many of you guys who I start working with, the first thing I have to do with you is to simmer you down because you're in fight or flight all of the time. Which leads me to item number 5, digestive issues. These come from several areas. Number 1, no vagal nerve stimulation with the tongue being on the spot. When the tongue is correctly on the spot and the vagus nerve is stimulated, digestion is better. The vagus nerve is responsible for a lot of things, but a couple biggies: regulation of digestion, regulation of breathing. So those are really important. Chronic fight or flight means that your nervous system is chronically in sympathetic mode, not parasympathetic mode, which we need to digest. It's called rest and digest for a reason. When you're in sympathetic mode, when you're in freak out mode, when you're in fight or flight, your body does not care what's happening to your burrito when you're running from the saber-toothed tiger. We need to have a balance of sympathetic mode and parasympathetic mode, if you will, because our body needs that, but you don't want to be chronically fighting for your life, essentially, okay? You need to be relaxed for digestion to occur, period. The other thing is the simple mechanics of chewing and swallowing are affected by a tongue tie. So even if you want to argue with me that that is not the problem, you cannot have a correct swallow if you have a tongue tie. A great example that I like to use often with my clients is if you have a tongue tie and you tell me that you swallow with no problems, that's like saying that Muhammad Ali could fight the same with both arms versus one being tied down to his belt loop, okay? Not gonna fly. Just because you don't think it's an issue doesn't mean that's the case. That does not mean that it's gospel. Ever heard the word tongue thrust? That's just a fancy term for saying, hey, you don't swallow correctly. Many of my clients come to me with a tongue thrust, and a tongue thrust is a symptom of a bigger problem, okay? It's not the problem itself. When your tongue is tied down, you develop an altered swallow. You don't have a choice. The same way as if your hand was tied to your belt loop, you would move your arm and you would use the muscles differently, okay? So the biggest thing that I want to say, if you're an adult and you're wondering whether a tongue tie is affecting you or not, I hope this helps open your eyes. We talked about 5 things: increase in symptoms, the concern for sleep apnea and sleep disordered breathing. I see a lot of choking. I see a lot of postural issues. And then lastly is digestive issues. So those are 5 big things that just kind of should help open your eyes that there are long-term consequences to not treating a tie. But one last thought before I go. Don't use age as an excuse either, unless you are planning to exit from this world really soon. nobody is too old for a release. My oldest client was 79 when she had her first release done. We did 2 releases, and I generally will say that my older population of clients, half are mad and half are madder, because the half that are mad knew that they had a concern, they didn't do anything about it, and then as they get older, they do therapy with me and they realize that they had improvements. They really wish that they had done it sooner. And then the other part of the population, those people who are really mad, they're just really mad because nobody ever told them that this was a concern. Nobody ever told them that the tongue needed to be in the roof of the mouth, or that they need to be nasal breathing, that kind of stuff. So I hope that is helpful, because if you are an adult and you're wondering if a tongue tie is going to impact you, or if you would be benefited by having a release, I hope that helps. If you want to learn more, you can find more great information on my website, on my YouTube, all over my social media. Remember, I don't do business in my direct messages. If you're going to email me a question, you can email it to thetonguetrainer@gmail.com. Remember, I get to that when I get to that, because I generally record videos to answer those questions. If you want to become a client of mine, you start with an exam, so that's the best way. If you have questions and you want me to comment on your case, remember, I have to do a comprehensive assessment before I will even discuss your case. So the best place to start, obviously, is an exam. This gets you on my schedule. We talk about what's going on, what your goals are, that kind of stuff. Also, the Getting Started Guide. So you can find that anywhere you're consuming my social media content. That is going to help you figure out what symptoms you identify with. So that self-assessment tool in it is really helpful. That is it for today. I tried to make it short and sweet. It went a little bit longer than I wanted. Remember, if you found this helpful, please drop us a comment, share it with a friend, and until next time, when I'll be back and answer another great question. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.